Good evening, and welcome to Soluble, America's Political Central. We now sit here tonight coming on air to you. We are 11 days out, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Americans. We're 11 days out from determining, are we going to continue on the current path of leadership with Democrats in the majority, or we're going to rock the vote, take a hard right, and put Republicans back in control. Now, we've touched on different topics, different issues that's on the voters' minds going into the midterms, such as crime, the economy, healthcare, etc. Tonight, we're going to take a deep dive, as much knowledge as we have on the subject, in immigration. Immigration. So, with 11 days out until the midterms, here we are. As it relates to the stance from Republicans and the stance from the left and Democrats, who is best to lead on immigration. Now, Democrats, they need to be straightforward and forthcoming with what's really going on with immigration. The things that they're trying to do, the things that they're trying to get accomplished to make the border more secure, to actually have a process in place that works. And speaking on a process in place that works, we can't seem to come together as a nation under the two-party system, three-party system, if you count independent. We can't seem to come together on a comprehensive immigration plan and, bring it to the floor, put it up for a vote, and then, put it into law. Republicans have had majorities in Congress and the White House several times, a number of times here in recent history. Nothing has gotten done when it comes to comprehensive immigration, a plan, a law in place that works, that makes the border more secure, that doesn't make the job of the Border Patrol so difficult, so challenging, that makes, some of them want to leave the profession or leave the occupational field of protecting our borders. So on one hand, you have, and as pitches and strikes as best we can, pitches and strikes, calling it like we see it here at Soluble, calling it like we see it. And, if any of our listeners are out there and they beg to differ, we welcome that. We welcome insight. We welcome, any feedback, any input that would bring a solution, because that's what we're all about here at Soluble. That's what we're all about here. Now, you'll hear that, the immigration, the people that are coming across the border legally, they're committing crimes. They're out here just, almost like a menace to American society. That's, in the whole scheme of things, in the whole statistical number of when it comes to crime, they're far and few. They're far between. They're far and few between as far as actual crimes that are being committed by people who are coming across the border illegally. Now, the most that they're doing in the way of being criminal is just being here illegally in the first place. Excuse me. The most that they're doing criminally when they're crossing the border illegally is just that, just being here in the first place illegally, without a green card, without proper documentation. That's the worst that they're doing. I mean, have they committed some crimes that have affected police officers and police officers' families? Just average everyday citizens, taking lives, killed. Yes, they have. It has been instances But in the whole statistical number, as I said, and one is one too many. That's our position here at Soluble. One is one too many. One is one too many. But in the whole scheme of statistical numbers, they're small in comparison to those of us who are here, actual citizens. So, don't go for the boogeyman approach that, the immigrants are coming. Kind of like, the British are coming, like we're being invaded. We can't look at it from a closed-minded approach like that, because that's actually not the case. But, calling it like we see it as best we can. If you go into the Republicans' playbook, the topic of immigration is a boogeyman issue. It's used to promote fear and incite fear into the minds of the American public. I mean, I go to work every day, and I come home. I don't have issues with immigrants, whether they're of Hispanic descent, Guatemalan, Venezuelan, Haitian. I don't have an issue at my doorstep. I don't have an issue at the exit ramp off the expressway, if you will, where I'm constantly being bombarded with that nuisance, according to Republicans, that is an immigrant. So, do we have an issue at the border? Of course. Do we have an issue at the southern border? Of course we do. But to use it or to talk about it in the way that they do on the right, it's like an invasion. It's like we're being overrun, and at any time it could change the course of our daily lives. Our border patrol, first of all, our first line of defense, which is the border patrol. And then, we have law enforcement, local law enforcement, state law enforcement. We have federal law enforcement that are all capable of putting their heads together, putting their agencies together, if that was the case, if it was the case, to handle the ongoing problem of illegal immigration that is being forced upon us, where we're being invaded. So, as I said, if you don't see this in your daily commute as a problem, coming home from work, and they're on your doorstep, when you go in the grocery store, I just don't see it affecting my daily lives, people. And I'm quite sure that I speak for the vast majority of Americans when I say that. But from the time I leave my house in the morning till the time I get back, I'm not affected in a negative way by an immigrant, legal or illegal, in my daily life. So to say that we don't have a problem would be misleading. And that's what we're not. That's not what we're about here at Soluble. To say that we don't have a problem would be misleading. But at the same time, from the right, and the left has to acknowledge that there's a problem there. But this is something that it takes votes to bring it into law. Now, on the one hand, you have the Republicans who just have so much of a problem with immigration. So much of a problem. It's an invasion. Like I said, at any time we can be overrun. But yet, when they have the majority, at times when they've held the power, when they've held the levers of power in DC, comprehensive immigration plan, they have not. They have not brought forth to the floor. They have not brought forward to the American people to let us know what they want to do when it comes to a comprehensive immigration plan to fix the problem on the southern border. Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? I mean, you can't have it both ways, where there is a problem, and we all acknowledge that there is a problem on the southern border. We acknowledge that. But at the same time, you can't have it both ways, where there is a problem, but then you're not doing nothing to try to bring about a fix. I mean, it would be the honorable thing to do for those on the right or the left to bring forth to the American people to attempt to put into law to say, is there a number? Is there a certain number that we're comfortable with on the southern border? To say, for example, where, we let 500,000 a year in, whether it's through work visas, whether it's through permits, being sworn in as permanent citizens, um, or temporary work where they come over here and do labor, help the farmers out, maybe working, public servant jobs, and then, they work so long and then they go back home to their native country. There has to be a fix here. There has to be a fix because we're human beings who, when we create a problem, we should be, as human beings, able to solve that problem. And, by no means is the answer treating these people less than humane. Inhumane treatment, putting them on buses, putting them on planes, flying them across the country to destinations unknown. And you don't even have, officials in these places where they're being flown to don't have any notice. It's just being, kind of dropped in their lap. These are the stunts coming from the right. This is something out of the Republican playbook of smoke and mirrors to say that, two wrongs make a right in their world. Now, you think about that for a minute with 11 days out, ladies and gentlemen. Think about that with 11 days out. In the Republican, based on their approach of putting these people on planes, sending them to what they describe as liberal sanctuary cities or liberal cities in the north, it's two wrongs make a right. It's two wrongs make a right. Okay, if it's going bad on the southern border, if they're flooding into Texas, if illegal immigrants are flooding into Florida. Okay, if you take those, if it's wrong for them to come to these two states, and you take them and ship them to other states, that's wrong also. So where is the righteousness in that? But at the end of the day, as I said, when it comes to immigration, a lot of the economists and some of the think tank experts, when it comes to our shipping supplies being snarled, farmers having their crops held up in their fields, a lot of these economists have said that immigrants coming into the country, so many would be good for the economy to ease the supply chain, the crippling of it. The strangulation, the chokehold is on the supply chain. It would do a lot to ease it. It would do a lot to get things moving again. So here you have it. As I said, you got the Democrats when it comes to immigration with 11 days out. With 11 days out, can the Democrats hold the line and protect the American people from a so-called foreign invasion, which we know it's not? But there needs to be a process in place. Why can't the two parties work together? We feel like, on the left, the Democrats would like to seriously try to hammer something out here to, get something into law that makes the southern border work more smoothly. They tried it. Obama tried it with DACA, for children who were brought over here unbeknownst to them that they weren't citizens. Didn't really know what was going on. They just had to go where their parents took them. The Republicans don't even want to go halfway on DACA. Shipping, immigrants and these people are fleeing a lot of times persecution. I mean, think about it. Who wants to make this kind of a trek, across rivers, hills, streams, mountains to get to American shores from their own home country? Something is going on here, ladies and gentlemen. And as human beings living in the greatest country, we ought to have some compassion here. And the least that we can do as a country, we got 11 days out now, and we're talking about immigration tonight. The least we can do as a country is try to put something into law to make the system work at the southern border. so that everyone can get in line and wait their turn. The Democrats are for it. This is not biasness because we here at Soluble, we vote Democrat. We're staunchly Democrat. But this is not biasness here. President Biden wants to really sit down with Republican leadership on the right. As you were. House representation in Speaker Pelosi. Senate representation in Senator Chuck Schumer. They want to sit down. They want to get together with Republicans. Republicans like Mitch McConnell, Kevin McCarthy, to hammer out a comprehensive immigration plan. Now, you will see the Republicans hammer away at immigration. They'll hammer away and say, it's an invasion. As I said, it's a real problem. And they start to put this fear into the minds of the Republican people. I mean, to the American people. They'll start, it starts to border on fear that we should have something to fear here when it comes to immigration. And it's not the case. It's not the case, ladies and gentlemen. And if it was so much the case, why? You have to ask yourself, with 11 days out. And this is a very important issue because it speaks to the makeup or the breakup of the American economy, the American public, our way of life. It's such a hot button issue. It's such a issue that it's going to take America down, but yet you won't bring a comprehensive immigration plan to the floor of the House. Bring comprehensive immigration to the forefront and, bring it up for a vote. But this is right out of the Republican playbook. Fear-mongering. It's right out of the Republican playbook. They have nothing but complaints. They have nothing but scare tactics for immigration, illegal immigration on the southern border. Now, could the truth of the matter be, could the truth of the matter be that the Republicans want zero immigration from the southern border and more immigration from the northern border, say from Canada, say from places like Czechoslovakia or wherever the former president's wife is from these countries? And there's nothing wrong with that either. But where is the humane approach? I think that's what we ought to really ask ourselves here tonight with 11 days out. Where is the humane approach when it comes to immigration? Which party is going to, number one, take the humane approach? Number two, do what's best to protect the southern border and the American people's way of life? Which party is best cut out, lined up, ready to do it, bringing something to the floor to bring up for a vote? Which party is better positioned to do it right now? Which party? And I mean, it is what it is. It's definitely an important issue facing, the future of America. In way back in the days of General Sam Houston, you know, the Hispanics were pushed back. They were pushed further south from what had been up to that point some of their claimed traditional land. But after the battle was fought, after the war was waged for Texas, the Hispanics were pushed further south. We don't know, where the boundaries, how far they went, hundreds of miles or what have you. But we do know that what Hispanics had previously considered their traditional territory was reduced in the days of Sam Houston. And it's been a problem ever since. It's been a problem ever since because, they were pushed back and the boundary lines were drawn for Texas. But the Hispanics still continued to come. They still continued to come. So it's been an ongoing issue for decades. This is not something that just all of a sudden popped up in the Biden years. Under the previous president, we had family separation, putting people in what amounted to cages, separating children from their parents. And this was not done to fix a broken immigration system. This was done as a way of trying to deter and discourage Hispanics from crossing the Rio Grande and entering the United States. That's all this was. This was not a common sense approach to the immigration problem. This was done out of biasness and hatred for Hispanics who want to immigrate to this country, whether legally or illegally. That's what this was. Separation of families. Which, some today have not even been reunited with their families. But as far as a solution to immigration, that's not what, that approach was designed for. It was a very racist approach, and it was only meant to instill fear into Hispanics and discourage them from coming, across the border, period. Just don't come, because, it's a different approach now, and this is what's going on. So that's what it was. It didn't work then, and it's not working now. You haven't had Republicans come out on a press conference and be honest with the American people about what's going on with Build the Wall. Now, the president had his 4 years, but we never saw evidence of where Mexico wrote a check that paid for the wall, and that's all we heard. This was the Republican plan of the previous administration, and we have to say the Republican plan because they backed it 100%. They never, discouraged it. They never came out and said, no, this is not going to work, and this is not the approach that we're going to take. They fell in line, lockstep, behind whatever the previous administration wanted to do. So they at least owe us an explanation. We have 11 days out, ladies and gentlemen, 11 days out before the midterm. And, we don't need, it's one thing we don't need when it comes to border policy and fixing a broken immigration system. We don't need, trickery. We don't need ambiguity. We don't need, say one thing and do another. But you haven't had Republicans come out one time, not once, to explain to the American people what happened with the wall that we were promised, which would stop illegal immigration on the southern border. I'll build the wall, and Mexico is going to pay for it. Now, it sounds good. It was a great soundbite during the 2016 campaign. It was a great soundbite. And you start to, and I can understand the voters, the MAGA-rights who fell in line. I can understand the MAGA-rights because, it was in their head, it was like visions of sugar plums the night before Christmas. I mean, by golly, we got a president who's going to build a wall on the southern border, and Mexico is going to have to pay for it. Nothing out of the taxpayer's pocket. It's like a dream come true for, those staunch advocates of illegal immigration. It's like a dream come true, pie in the sky. And nothing. And nothing. It went from highly praised campaign rhetoric to a thud, a dud, a nothing burger. In the words of, some of the famous Trump children, a nothing burger. And not one time, not once, have you had the Republicans come out and say, okay, we tried to build the wall. We put so much money into it, and it's 80% effective. It's 90% effective. The section that we have built. Hispanics are scaling the wall with ladders, blowing up holes in the wall to crawl under. Now, as taxpaying citizens, we ought to be able to know, what happened there. Was there any taxpayer money spent? Was it taxpayer money that was well spent? And we have to, so 11 days out, my fellow Americans, with 11 days out, these are questions that deserve serious answers. We have to put serious thought into this. Because even though it's immigration, all the things that we have discussed, crime, healthcare, the economy, all of these things could be a threat to democracy, whether it's one single thing or whether it's all of them as a collective. And so immigration, a comprehensive immigration policy is real important. Right now, we need it for the economy. As I've said, economists, experts in economy have stated that a sound immigration policy would be good for the economy, especially now in a post-COVID era, with our supply chains locked up, with a lot of civil service or public service jobs, going unfulfilled. Let the people work. Let the people work. And if we had a comprehensive immigration plan, this would be not even a discussion tonight. We could sit here and assure you that, we have a comprehensive immigration plan, and it's just a matter of which party will execute it better on behalf of the American people. But that's surely where we're at. The Democrats acknowledge. They acknowledge that, we have a problem on the southern border. We have a problem, ladies and gentlemen. There's no denying that. As a staunch Democrat myself, there's no denying that. For the umpteenth time, we have a problem on the southern border. So, as voters with power, with a time in history now to exercise your power, to either vote up or down, either vote right or left, either keep them in or vote them out. Take a long look at this issue. The Democrats are ready to debate it. They're ready to negotiate it, to bring about a comprehensive immigration plan for the southern border. And all you have Republicans doing is ranting and raving about the immigration and how it's, the system is broken, it's busted. Ladies and gentlemen, why don't they want to put a plan forward? I mean, if I'm your leader, and I'm telling you that, there's a concern here with this certain thing. Let's just use immigration, for example. If I'm your leader and I tell you, look, we have a serious concern with immigration, aren't you going to look for me as your leader to say, okay, what do we do? You're the leader. So what do we do? But you have nothing for people who want to lead. Now they expect the American people, they want the American people to give them back power in 11 days. They want them to vote, they want us to vote them back into the majority and give them power when they have no answers. When they have no answers. When it comes to immigration, ladies and gentlemen, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. I'll say it again. When it comes to immigration, my fellow Americans, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. There's nothing there. If it was, they would do something about it. And this is going to take both parties working together to get it done. To get comprehensive immigration legislation passed and fix the problem on the southern border. It's going to take both parties working together. And here you have the left, the Democrats, being pretty much, left standing at the altar with no groom in sight. That's what it amounts to. What does, flying a plane of immigrants to Martha's Vineyard, what does that accomplish? What did we accomplish there? It's nothing. It's nothing but a political gimmick to have the American people feared up, to instill fear. A stunt like that with human lives. These are human beings, people. And what's the plan? That is the question. What is the plan that Republicans have for immigration? That we should give them the reins of power again. Putting children in cages, separating families. That didn't work. Did it discourage? Did it discourage immigrants from fleeing political persecution, gang violence in their country? Death threats on their lives. Did it discourage them from fleeing this kind of persecution? So there's a way to help. There's a solution. There is a solution to this. And I hope the American people can realize, because as Democratic voters, and this is my plea mostly to Negroes in America who vote and who need to vote and should vote. This is, a serious issue. Going forward, leading this country forward with immigration as, a key issue. We need to keep it where it's at. We need to keep Democrats in the majority. And it's really the only way that is going to really bring Republicans to the table, when they see that, their scare tactics and fear mongering is no longer working. This is the only way. It's going to bring them to the table to say, we're going to have to do the right thing now. Because up until this point in time, scare tactics have worked when it comes to the American voters on this particular subject of immigration. Scare tactics have worked. Fear mongering has worked. But ask yourself, what has improved between a Republican administration and a Democratic administration without a comprehensive immigration policy put into law? What has happened as far as the amount of so-called illegals coming to the southern border? Do the numbers dwindle under Republicans? As I said, we're putting children in cages in the previous administration. We're separating families. But the people still come. The people still come. The people still come. I mean, what would you do? I mean, me myself, if I'm fleeing persecution, death threats, I'd rather come to the border of a free country and live in a cage there, and hold out hope that I may get processed in, versus staying in a country where I know I'm dead. I know that I'm dead. I know that my family members are dead. I'm gonna flee. I'm gonna take that same journey. I'm gonna take that same northern trek, and just deal with the rationalization that living in a cage, being separated, or being in detainment until I'm processed is better than where I was at, facing certain death. So the numbers haven't changed. The numbers haven't changed as far as the number of people who flock to the southern border. I mean, with the war in Ukraine here earlier this year, you had Ukrainians trying to get through at the southern border. You had some Russians trying to get through at the southern border. So, for people who are fleeing persecution in their country, political upheaval, the southern border seems to be the place to be in the time of need. Right now, it just so happens that there are more Hispanics who are at the southern border in a time of need. But as I said, Ukrainians, Russians, Haitians, trying to get to the greatest country on earth. So, looking at it from a humane point of view, we have to get comprehensive immigration legislation on the books some kind of way. And that way is a Democratic majority. A Democratic majority that will consult with the Border Patrol heads, if you will, the big brass in charge at the border, to see what they need. You know what I mean? And then after that, Republicans have to come to the table. But with a Republican majority, you're not going to have that. You're not going to have negotiations and discussions for comprehensive immigration. Because if the truth be told, as I said, the Republicans want zero immigration from the Hispanic nation, from South American countries. Let's tell the truth and shame the devil here, and try to bring about a solution. Always in the discussion is how to solve it. How to solve it. Now, to my Democratic colleagues, we're going to make a real push here at Soluble to maintain the majority that we have. But you have to understand that, illegal immigration is a serious issue. And we need our Democrats to push back harder. We need our Democrats to call a spade harder, more forceful. Take this forceful approach. We're being beat back by Republicans simple with their strong message, with their strong stance. We have to have an equally strong stance. We have to have an equally strong stance when it comes to immigration, but at the same time, err on the side of humanity. Where's the empathy here? Because, as I said, these people are really actually fleeing certain death situations. Situations where, they're threatened. They're persecuted. The political leaders are taking bribes. What can we do along the lines of import-export, as a way of possibly solving the immigration policy, the immigration problem we have at the southern border? Is there something that Mexico could export? Is there something we can import from Mexico that would have, more Hispanics staying in their country to work there to ship products here? For example, just like it's made in China a lots of times. Oftentimes when we get products and we read it's made in China, can we get things made in Mexico that may make, as I said, the citizens stay there and build and make these products to be shipped to America? That wouldn't be a bad deal for our southern neighbors versus a competitor, halfway around the world who really doesn't have America's best interests at heart. But at the end of the day, folks, with 11 days out, when it comes to immigration in this country, what Republicans like to harp on as illegal immigration. What is the plan? What is the plan? With 11 days out, we still don't know. We still don't know where the Republicans are at with the solution. At least give us that. And if they can't give us that, it begs serious soul searching and serious thought put into it. Because just like some of my other previous topics, crime, the economy, healthcare, there's no plan in place for a party that wants to be in power. How do we do that? How do we do that as American citizens? Put a party in power that has no plan for a solution. And then the beat goes on with the same problem. This is what, we need to consider going into vote for the midterms. Are we willing to put a party back in power that has no plan? The plan is no different than family separation, build the wall, that we know nothing about. It's tough talk. Excuse me. It's tough talk. We're going to build a wall, and Mexico's going to pay for it. And then you have the Republicans standing behind that message. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then when it fizzles out, they don't keep the same energy. They don't bring the same energy to the American people to say, okay, this is what happened on the wall. This is where it's at, and this is why it works or why it doesn't work. Nothing. From then to now, from the previous administration, when the Republicans had power, to now, that's where we're at. Family separation, stay in Mexico policies, children in cages, build a wall. This was and possibly still is the Republicans' solution to immigration at the southern border. It didn't work then. It's not going to work now. And what do they have? What do the Republicans have as far as a plan for immigration with 11 days out? It's a mystery. Now, how are you as the American people going to not show up in huge numbers? With 11 days out, we already have record turnout in Georgia, which is great news for Democrats. We have record turnout. So in spite of the stumbling blocks that Georgia has tried to put into law, you can't give people water standing in line, cutting the time of early voting. Despite this, there's record turnout in Georgia. And if we rock this vote, Democrats, if we rock this vote, then we'll keep the majority and we'll keep America moving forward, albeit if it's at a snail's pace now when it comes to inflation, the economy. Are we in a recession? We're moving forward in a post-COVID era. And it's not just here in America, but all over the world. The wheels of economic power and the wheels of the economic norms have not begun to turn like they were before the pandemic. This is all over the world. So here we are. We got 11 days out. And immigration is on the ballot. And here you have a party that has an immigration plan that right now, if it's not the same as it was in the previous administration, this party's plan for immigration right now is a mystery. How do we vote that into power as Americans? As intelligent, educated Americans, how do we vote that into power? A party that comes to power and the solution that they have for this particular problem is a mystery. Who votes for that? I mean, we understand that we got the MAGA rights. There's some 70 million strong. But at the end of the day, it's still not enough of them, as we seen in the 2020 election. That wasn't stolen. I repeat, that wasn't stolen. So we have some 70 some odd million of the MAGA rights who don't care one way or another, because it's racism involved here, folks. I mean, let's just be frank about it. If we're going to try to come up with a solution, if we're going to try to solve this problem of immigration, we want to put the best and brightest people in power to solve it. Not just for what's best for the American people. That's number one, of course. But as I said, number two, right close behind what's best for the American people is this is an issue of humanity, folks. This is an issue of humanity. When there's a flood, as we've seen sometimes here, this past summer with some of these lightning storms or whatever, when there's a flood, the snakes, the rats, all the slithering, creeping things out in the forest are trying to climb up to get to higher ground. And we don't blame them. We may have to kill them out of fear or out of protection for ourselves. I understand that you're trying to get to higher ground because things are flooded, but you can't slither in here. And one can understand that. I have to do what I have to do to protect myself, but I understand why you're slithering this way, because the water is rising. It's the same thing with immigration, folks, except for these are human beings that we're dealing with. The turbulent waters are rising in these countries. And so it's only human nature for these people to try to get to higher ground. And that higher ground happens to be America. But we need a process in place. Of course, we need a process in place. We can't just be flooded with, immigrants coming that our economy, our country, our infrastructure system can't handle. We should all be able to agree to that. But this is an issue of humanity, folks. And so we believe that here at Soluble, our position is based on what we've seen, based on the negotiations, the debates, the talking points, based on the mere action of our political leaders from the right. We believe that it's best handled immigration to try to bring about a comprehensive policy that will put a system in place where people can wait their turn and be processed in a timely manner. As I said, whether it's work visas, where you come in and work a little while and then leave, whether it's a permanent visa, whether it's an educational or whatever. We need a plan in place for these people. And it can be done only by maintaining a Democrat majority. When you want to look at it from a humanitarian point of view. It can only be handled by best handled immigration in this country with 11 days out. Based on what's being done, what's been said. Put forth, legislation. Bring forth possible policy that can be instituted into law. Bring it to the floor. We're talking to, our fellow Americans on the right. Bring it to the floor for a vote. Don't just whine. pull political stunts. If it's a problem like that, and that's what, we here at Soluble with 11 days out, until the midterms. We're asking the American people to take a serious look at what's what here. As I said, the boogeyman approach from the right is that, we're being flooded at the southern border and we're being overran. And you have border states, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico. Of course, they're bearing the brunt of it. They're bearing the brunt of it. And we're not going to, sit here at Soluble and make it seem as if we don't understand their frustrations or what they may be going through down at the border states. But at the end of the day, we need to have something written into law that's on the books that then our law enforcement agencies, as it relates to the executive branch of government, can execute and carry out, so that the proper people are in place for would-be criminals, would-be drug dealers who are coming in through the southern border. We can put a policy out, put something in the law, and then be able to explain to the immigrants who are coming that, this is the law, this is where it's at, it's in stone, and you have to wait your turn, or you have to go through the process and then wait for your name to be called, if it will be called, if you're qualified, after all the background checks. And this would be better for the American people, the system that we live under. Bring law into play. Put immigration law on the books. So, that's it. That's it in closing, ladies and gentlemen. From the left, based on what we see here at Soluble, read, and hear through journalism, the Democrats are ready to, tackle this issue. They're not in denial. The Democrats are not in denial. I haven't heard not one Democrat say there's not a problem at the southern border. They all acknowledge that it is. But at the same time, I hear them saying the same thing. The Republicans don't want to work across the aisles when it comes to comprehensive immigration legislation. So where do we go from here? We should go forward, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Americans. We should go forward on all the issues that we've discussed here at Soluble. There's no time for wheel spinning. We're having serious global challenges now in the form of pandemics, in the form of, our food production, in the form of natural disasters. So there's no time for wheel spinning here. We need solutions. And therefore, Soluble came into being. Because as I said, there's nothing like having a solution to any given problem. And that's what we try our best to represent here. And it's not to say that Republicans are always the problem and Democrats are always the solution. But this is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is what it is. This is not what we've made up or what we've fictionalized or the narrative that we've created to fit, our agenda. This is what it is. A mystery right now from the right. They'll grumble about it. They'll complain about it. They'll tell you that the sky is falling when it comes to immigration. This is what our leadership from the right will tell you. And it's all talk. It's all show and no go. It's a problem, it's a problem, it's a problem. But never a solution. To say what they will do. In closing, in closing, on this particular issue as it relates to immigration, which is something that we really have to think about when we go into the ballot box in 11 days. If you haven't already early voted, early voting started here in the great state of Florida now. I will get out as soon as I can. I plan to vote early. But, if you haven't made up your mind, if you're still on the fence, one way or another, this issue of immigration is not going to be solved from a racist point of view. The truth be told, as I said, there's been a problem at the southern border ever since the days of Sam Houston and the defeat of Santa Anna and his armies. It's been a problem ever since. The Hispanics are the people of Mexico have not wanted to respect that line. I mean, they have no other choice but to respect it when it comes to a militaristic approach. But at the end of the day, when there's nothing threatening militarily, anything of the sort, then they're migrating north. They're continuing to come north as they have since the days of Sam Houston. So we can't just pin this on from the Republicans' point of view. If you're listening, if you're marching to the beat of that drum, you will think that this is something that the problem that the Democrats are causing, and they're letting it happen because the Democrats are pushing for the great replacement. Jews are in the mix and they're behind it. All this is just fear mongering, folks. All this is just fear mongering. I mean, for the last 20 years of my life, I haven't had a problem with going to work, coming home, and during the course of my day, I'm constantly being invaded, disturbed, interrupted by illegals coming across the southern border who are causing my day to be unusual, not what it should be as a hardworking American. They're at the exit ramp. They're at the grocery store panhandling. I can't go to the movie theater without them camped out there, pissing on the sidewalk. It's not the case. It's not the case. So, don't believe the hype. Once again, don't believe the hype when it comes to their fear mongering that the Republicans are so good at. Because trust and believe, if it was that kind of a threat level, or if it was worthy of that level of fear, they would have done something when they had the majority. Or even if they don't have the majority, they would say, okay, we brought immigration legislation to the floor and brought it forth and explained it to the American people so we can fall in line on the right side of humanity. I'm a staunch Democrat, but the Republicans got something that's a solution to the immigration problem at the southern border, and it borders on the side of humane treatment for these people. I'm all for it. You got my vote. Even if you have an R representing Republican behind your name, you got my vote. Because at the end of the day, this is bigger than party, folks. It's bigger than party. So, let's use common sense here. Let's take a step back, take a deep breath, and, take a wholehearted, intelligent approach, look, if you will, at immigration in particular in this country. The solution we here at Soluble feel is to bring comprehensive immigration legislation to the floor. Bring your plan to the floor and let's bring it up for a vote. And let's try to put it into law. Fear mongering is not working. Half truths. As I said, this old approach, locking people up, separating families, building walls. We don't need nothing that's going to waste American taxpayers' money and waste our time. You know, they're great campaign political sound bites, but at the end of the day, they have no teeth. That's what we've gotten. That's what we've gotten with Republicans in charge. Now here we are, 2 years into a Democratic majority. 2 years into a Democratic majority. And the southern border has no more made or broke America, no more than it has in a previous Republican administration or a previous time when Republicans were in charge. It's the same old, same old. And at the end of the day, all we need is comprehensive legislation that we can put into law. That's all we need. And with 11 days out, when it comes to the solution from the right, from the Republicans on immigration, it's a mystery. At best, it's a mystery. But yet and still, from that same position of the right, we have something to fear. We have something to worry about. The Biden administration is taking America to hell in a handbasket when it comes to immigration. This is all racist fear, racist stereotypes. That's all it is. So we're asking you to try to look through it, look past it, and look at this from a humanitarian point of view. No human being is going to walk hundreds of miles, leaving their own country without a good reason. So our position here at Soluble is Democrats are best positioned to work with these foreign governments, whether they be in South America, Mexico, work with these governments to come up with a comprehensive immigration plan, a plan to solve the problem as to why these people are fleeing. The Republicans, they're not going to do it, ladies and gentlemen. They're not going to do it. It's only meant to instill fear in you until the vote is over. And then nothing. And then nothing. You voted in build the wall. You voted it in. Some, let's be honest with ourselves. Some who were on the fence during the previous presidential campaign, when they heard that a wall was going to be built and Mexico was going to pay for it, that made them cast a vote in favor of Republicans. Now, these same people, not everybody was sold on it, or not everybody came off the fence once they heard the wall was going to be built. But for those of you who did come off of the fence and fall on the side of Republicans when you heard about the wall and the fact that Mexico was going to pay for it, it never happened. So are you going to be duped again? Are you going to go for it again? And if you're not, don't just let it be where you don't go for it again. Tell a friend. Because at the end of the day, we want to fix the problem. Democrats are not for, the southern border being invaded, being overrun. That's not a Democratic position. But we are for comprehensive immigration legislation. We're strongly for that. And we believe that, if we can get cooperation from the right side of the aisle, we can make this law and, we can fix this problem and make the job less stressful for our Border Patrol agents and law enforcement in general who are on the front lines fighting this problem. So if you want it solved from the right, bring the legislation, bring your ideas to the forefront, present them to the American people. We're intelligent enough. We can comprehend. We can catch on. But as I said to my fellow listeners, mystery all the day long. Mystery all the day long. So in closing, with 11 days out, that's our take. That's our presentation on immigration as it relates to what the Democrats are willing to do about it and ready to do about it, and what the Republicans are willing to do about it and ready to do about it. So now it's up to the American people. It's up to you to decide, which way you're going to go. If you want stunts, if you want, these old antiquated ideals that don't work, then you'll vote Republican. But it's really going back down a path that we've already been down. That didn't work then, and it's not going to work now. So in closing, that's it. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. And so the decision is up to you now with 11 days out. That's Immigration 101 from a soluble point of view to you, the American people, to think about it. And if you haven't already made up your mind, hopefully this will shed some light that will help you make a decision all the more quickly or all the more clearer. We're not going to go into any issue tomorrow as far as issue date being on Friday. With the midterm so close, we're gonna marathon on with politics, all things that are affecting the American voters and the American people with the midterms being so close. But after the midterms are over, we'll definitely begin with our issue day again on every Friday of the week. But for now, as I said, we're going to marathon politics, political discussion, because that's how important it is, for the future of America going forward. Next week, we'll begin to touch on other issues that are affecting the American voter. You can go back and look at some of our previous broadcasts when it comes to crime, healthcare, and things of that nature that we've already discussed, and make up your own mind whether we want to change the direction, change the power structure, or keep it the way it is. Thank you for joining us tonight on this discussion of immigration. And as I've said, we hope it's been enlightening and eye-opening to all of our listeners. Some of you haven't made up your mind, some who are still on the fence. We're always going to try to bring about a discussion that borders on solution, solving things. We know what the problem is. We pretty much know how we got in the situation that created the problem. So, at the end of the day now, what do we do to solve it? And, the future of our country, our future way of life weighs heavily on the upcoming midterm elections. So we thank you for joining us, and we hope you will, stay with us when we come back on next week, God willing, to continue issues and topics that, on the minds of the American voters going into the midterms. We don't know what next week is going to bring, but we do have a few more along the lines of climate change, threats to democracy, cost of living, and things of that nature. Marathoning, podcasting, going into the midterm. So until we see you again, we thank you for joining us tonight, and we hope that we have encouraged and enlightened on the subject of immigration. And now it's time for the vote. So this is Soluble signing off. Thank you for joining us. Good night.